Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of What Does the Giraffe Say with me, Kathleen Brittone. We are an organisation that aims to reconnect people in conservation by holding live interviews on social media. Today, I am very happy because I'm getting joined by Nick Askew, and he is the founder of Conservation Careers. There's actually a bit of a backstory with Nick and myself, actually, because we met in South Africa. He was one of the first people that I actually met after I had kind of quit my corporate life and got into conservation. And we met when I was volunteering, and we've stayed in touch ever since. So, Nick, I'm going to hand over to you. If you could tell me a little bit about yourself and how the idea for Conservation Careers was born.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Kath. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me on this live web stream. It's really great to be chatting and reconnecting again. Yeah, we were bunk bed buddies, weren't we, for a while? So that was great fun and nice that we still stay connected.
Yeah.
So where did the idea of Conservation Careers form? Briefly, so I've been working in conservation now for about 20 years. Give or take. And through my career, I've done like lots of different jobs for lots of different employer types. And about 8 years ago, I was lucky enough to be working for an organization called BirdLife International. And I worked for them for nearly a decade, actually, through various roles. I did communications and marketing. I did fundraising and various other things. And I was out in the Pacific, a bit like you, on a tropical, lovely island. I was in Fiji, not quite Montserrat, but I was working there for a few years. And I was looking to move back to the UK with my wife and looking to start a family. And during that time, I decided I wanted to start my own eco enterprise. I wanted to start a business that kind of does some good in the world. And I was actually recruiting for my job, like back recruiting. So I used all the big job boards that are out there, put my job on the site, and it was a good job. You know, I was fundraising across the Pacific, 7 different countries, and helping build and develop and design conservation programs and secure the funds for them. And we just didn't get many applications. And I was like, well, something's not right here. I felt there was a gap in the market for an international conservation job board, really. You know, there were lots of in-country job boards, but there wasn't this global conservation one that was providing the sort of applicants we were looking for. And then allied to that, I also felt that there should be much better careers advice, support and training for people looking to start work in wildlife conservation. There was no one really helping. And that's where the idea came from. You know, through my career, I've been asked loads of times, how do I get a conservation job? And I thought, well, let's start an enterprise to really help provide effective, holistic, and accurate support that gets people hired quicker. And then alongside that, you know, can we provide access to, you know, a huge conservation job board too, like showing people where the opportunities are, what they are, and helping people to secure them. So that's where the idea came from. A diverse career, spotting a need, wanting to help people and wanting to be independent. And that was 8 years ago. And as I say, we just celebrated our 7th birthday actually really recently. So it took me about a year to get the idea off the ground. And we're kind of live and running nowadays.
And then how was that process? Now that you've been going for a little while, is there anything that you know now that you'd wish you'd known at the start? What kind of advice would you give to someone who's started out in maybe setting up their own business in conservation? Any ideas here?
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing more and more like conservation enterprises starting nowadays, which I think is a fantastic thing, actually, a really good thing for the world. I think, like, broadly speaking, there's different ways of working in conservation, and charities are the kind of the big players in the market. They do fantastic work, and we should all find a charity we love and support them and get behind them. But the charity model, you know, does have limits. You know, it can only go as far as the donations it can raise. That's its sort of glass ceiling. Whereas actually an enterprise, an eco enterprise, as I call them, it doesn't have that limit. You know, the more success the business can have, the more impact it can have, so long as impact is at its core. So I think it's a really good place to be looking at for employment. And I think it's a really exciting place to be, actually. Advice for others and what I've learned through kind of starting and growing conservation careers. I would say in the early days, try and get support and get help. I was lucky enough in the first year of starting conservation careers, I was kind of part of an accelerator program where I got like a year's support, training, and a little bit of funding as well that really helped to get me off the ground and gave me the confidence and some knowledge and skills to actually, you know, grow a business, to start a business. And that really helps. I'd encourage other people to, if you're interested in this, do that as well. You know, find one. There are lots of accelerator program sort of startups out there that will help you and can help you. And that helped me a lot. And we're also looking to kind of start one ourselves probably the next year or two at Conservation Careers. We're helping about 6 or 7 different enterprises right now, but on a kind of low level. And we're looking to kind of grow a program around that too, because we want to see more of it happen. And I think other bits of advice I would say is, I think probably be agile. I think is probably like the big key word that jumps out to me. So have a kind of clear idea of the problem and what you're trying to solve in the world. For me, people want to get jobs and are having a hard time. What's causing the problems around that, and what solutions can I see to help? And then try and sort of don't overthink it too much, I would say. So try and get your solution out to market and just see what people think of it. So for me, it was kind of quickly pull a website together and promote that website and see what the traffic and engagement looks like, and then learn from there. And and then just be adaptable. So pivot if things don't work. Move and pivot. The opposite approach would be take an awfully long time. Plan your approach, have a business plan, yada yada yada, and actually put it out to market, and it might fail, and you've wasted all the time. Learn quick, fail quick, pivot, move, keep adapting, and you'll get there. It's like evolution.
And with the website that you have, and I know prior to COVID, you used to have some training courses as well, which I believe is now online. You're obviously talking with a lot of people, both from the side of wanting to get a career, but also from the side of people who are looking to hire. Are you seeing some common pitfalls here for the people that are applying for jobs? And what sort of advice would you give for someone who wants to get into conservation?
Yeah, those are huge questions, Kath. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so what problems and pitfalls or mistakes, I guess, do we see people make? There are quite a number of fairly common ones, I guess. So let's try and sort of pick out some big ones. I think one is thinking that there aren't many jobs available in conservation. I mean, COVID kind of put a pause on things this year, but things have opened up again. And under normal times, if you like, the job market is much bigger than I think people realize and people appreciate. So, I mean, we share about 10,000 jobs per year through the site, and that's still very much the kind of the tip of the iceberg. The reason being, it's dominated by lots of small charities who don't have big advertising budgets. They're not paying to put on the job boards where people go, and they're all kind of tucked away on their own websites or on LinkedIn and other places like that. So although they're becoming more available, there are much more jobs out there than people realize. There is so that's kind of one side of it. Another mistake we see people make all the time when trying to start and get their first job is kind of just reusing the same CV time and again from the application perspective. So, no one CV fits all, and we teach people. We have a free guide on our site as well. I'm not selling anything there. You can download it and get it. And it talks you through a step-by-step process of really working to personalize, tailor, bespoke your application to exactly what the employer is looking for. And that's so important. I mean, you don't have to start from a blank piece of paper every time. But really working hard to clearly sell yourself into the position and showcase that you have what the employer is looking for takes time. And it's not just a case of, here's my CV, the same old CV I've used time and time again. That just doesn't work. Job hunting is a job in itself. It takes time to do well. And the application phase often kind of trips people up. Other mistakes I think we see people make is, I think, assuming that you need to do hundreds of hours and spend, thousands of pounds on experiences like, volunteers and internships and that side of stuff. And those things are really valuable, for you in your career. They can help you to test drive different job types, find the right job that's right for you, find your niche, if you like. That's really important. It obviously can help charities and help to kind of deliver impact, which is really nice. It can help you to get quality evidence you can put in your applications and showcase to employers that you don't just know about something, you've done it, and you've got some success through doing it too, which is great. But I think the problem there is, well, twofold. One is that assuming you have to pay to do internships and volunteering, it's a big market, a diverse market. There are options where, employers can pay you. They're really competitive, but they are available. There's also lots of opportunities out there that just aren't advertised, a bit like the jobs I mentioned a minute ago. You know, the people who need support in the conservation sector are the people who are really busy. And because they're really busy, they're not sitting down and writing, you know, volunteer and internship descriptions and promoting them and shortlisting and interviewing and all the admin that comes with like bringing interns and vols in. So they're just they've just never got around to kind of conceptualizing the support they need. But if you spend time finding people who you'd like to work for and with, and then connecting with them and building relationships, that can quite often lead to an experience. You know, there's no cost associated with it. So don't think you need this sort of voluntary experience. You know, you should do it from the perspective of I want to find, there are specific employment gaps I need to fill for my chosen job. Then find experiences that help you to fill those specific gaps, or use it to kind of test drive your career options. And again, you know, you can pay, you can get some really good quality experiences out there. You can pay and get some really crummy experiences out there too. Or you can just go off and actually try and connect and create your own experiences. And almost like the latter, I think, is a really good way forward for a lot of people. And there are other mistakes as well, but I don't want to kind of go on for too long, so we can also if you want more.
Kind of feeding into that as well. I know a lot of people normally associate conservation with needing to have like a degree or like a science background and that kind of thing, which I think can also put a lot of people off. But I know that from following you guys for a while that you've been pushing quite heavily on getting people into communications, for example, because that's a big thing. What kind of experience can people bring if they might not have that kind of degree to back them up?
Yeah, so career switchers, as we often call them, so people who have a career behind them already, a bit like you, Kath, you know, working in journalism and other areas before, looking to kind of switch and transfer into conservation. I think there's a few issues that people kind of come across around that. One is like this imposter syndrome, feeling like you're an outsider and you're surrounded by experts and it's very hard to therefore access, and you know, you haven't got a route in. I would put that to one side. More often than not, your career has got loads of valuable things that you've been doing that conservationists are looking at. It's a much bigger market than most people realize. So like you say, I mean, journalism, like you were in before, Kath, you know, and still are in many respects, that is very transferable into conservation. You know, 41% of conservation employers are looking for people with communication skills. So particularly writing, but also, you know, verbal presenting, you know, managing social media, that sort of stuff. You know, they are more and more looking to kind of recruit from outside the conservation sector for key roles where the industry just does it better, if you like. So switching what you currently do into conservation is a good route. So program managers, fundraisers, even, you know, down to like, you know, accountants and, you know, the kind of the nuts and bolts admin support roles. You know, you could do that work for conservation employers. Kind of allied to that too, and one thing, and it sort of links back to the advice we were talking about before, and whether even you need a master's or a degree, like you were asking earlier as well. A kind of core part of that, I think, is for people to understand yourselves and the job market, and then find your sweet spot, find your fit. You know, in gardening, there's a metaphor which is, you know, right plant, right place. You know, and that some plants like, you know, hot conditions, some like dry, some like cold, some like wet, and so on. It's the same in your career. So which job is right for you? Where's your sweet spot? You know, what are you good at and what do you love doing? If we can help you to navigate your options to find your sweet spot, and that might be outside of conservation, you know, what is your individual sweet spot? From there, then it's quite straightforward in some ways to kind of say, well, what are employers looking for at the kind of entry level or at the mid-career switch level, if you're kind of transitioning across? What do you already have from what the employers are looking for from that list? But what do you still need to secure? And then from that perspective, you can say, right, these are my gaps. I need some experience around this, and there's a volunteer or internship that I need to be really targeted and strategic about. You know, or actually employers are looking for degrees of this thing or masters of this thing. I therefore might need to address that. But what you might find is that your experience to date kind of trumps a lot of what the employers are looking for from an education perspective, you know, because experience can beat education hands down. So don't assume you need a master's or you need a degree. You know, look at what employers are really looking for your chosen niche sweet spot. And if you're not sure, then do ask. And then the final thing before I shut up is with around masters particularly, you know, they are good things to do, you know, if you want to do one, you know, and you found one that you're really excited about and you're happy to spend the time and money, you know, doing it. What we do see is that, you know, conservationists I won't say a clever bunch, but they're an educated bunch. You know, we did a survey a few years back of several hundred professional conservationists, and something like, I think it was 69% had master's degrees or higher. So it probably won't hurt you to get one, but the message I'm trying to deliver is you don't need one. Understand the job you want, understand, you know, what gaps you need to address, and then from there, the clarity should follow.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think people back home are finding this quite inspiring as well. We've got Moana back in Zambia. Hello. She is saying this is amazing. So basically anyone can get into conservation and that she's learning so much already.
Thank you, Moana. That's really nice. Thank you.
So kind of feeding more into when we were talking earlier, we were talking about volunteer experiences and internships and careers and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of good companies out, and also there's a lot of not so good ones out there as well. How do you monitor when you're promoting them to make sure that they're fitting a certain guidelines? How does that work for people who want to ensure that they're going to actually get a quality experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to do, to be honest. So what we do at Conservation Careers is, well, firstly, we're kind of working towards a standard. So as a side hustle, I work with Christy Foster, who I think you had on the show recently.
I did, yeah.
Great, with Terra Incognita. So we are working to produce a new code of conduct around ethical ecotourism and ethical experience providers, so that people will sign up to this new standard that showcases that they benefit wildlife, they benefit local people, and they also educate and train their guests and their students, participants, to a standard. So we're looking to integrate with that next year when it comes online. Before then, what we do at Conservation Careers is we have a due diligence process. So anyone who pays to list an experience on the site, we do our own background checks as best we can through online research to see whether they look good, when there's any red flags that we need to kind of go deeper with and follow up with. And if we do find people that kind of show, you know, cause us great concern, if you like, then we don't list them or we pull them off the site. And we did that recently with an experience provider, actually, you know, because someone came to us and told us about something. Obviously, I can't share the details here, but then we removed them quite rapidly when things weren't quite as good as they should have been. So yeah, we do that. And anyone who we partner really closely with, of which I can literally count one or two, you know, very sizable organizations, then we make sure we understand, know, trust and like them to a great level. So we understand what it is they're providing and know it's of a quality. But I think within the experience sector, so we're talking like volunteering, internships, more broader than that, I'd say even like just training providers, it's such a big, diverse area. And it covers many different things as well. And it's worth briefly sort of touching on that, because sometimes like a volunteership or an internship that's advertised that has, you know, quite a big price tag associated with it, you know, let's face it, that could be just sort of hands-on training, or it could be like, you know, really quality training that's really going to deliver some, you know, significant employability for you. And I'd see that more as rather than like paying to work, I would see it more as like paying to receive quality experience, a bit like you would pay for a master's and go to uni and wouldn't worry about that. It's sort of the same thing. You're paying to get that kind of hands-on experience. Across the sector, there's other bits as well. You know, there are employers where you get paid, you know, it's a paying position to go and sit within, you know, an employer and get training. And we list them on the site. We've got a great list of the top 30 or 40 different opportunities that are out there. Yes, they're competitive, but they do exist, which is great. And then there's the other side of the market where, you know, you go and you spend, you know, a bit of free time in your evenings and weekends working perhaps for like a local charity at a nature reserve, getting hands-on, you're helping the charity and you're enjoying yourself at the same time. So it covers such a huge area that it's worth kind of, you know, understanding the kind of the expanse of that. Yeah.
Excellent. We've also got a comment off Mark Easterbrook, who we both know as well. So he's asking, with Bernard Looney, the CEO of BP, comment a few days ago with a link with Fauna and Flora International, what opportunities do you see in conservationists supporting the big oil and gas companies in the energy transition?
Well, good to see, Mark. Thanks for the question. I would say quite a lot, actually. So, you know, we have we talk to conservationists all the time. We do interviews with them, publish on our site. You know, we have a podcast that we run every couple of weeks. And I spoke to Mark Rose, who's the CEO of Fauna and Flora International, late last year, about this time, I think it was. And it's actually probably one of my favorite chats I've actually had through conservation careers across the 7 years. And he talks about his career, and he talks about, how he's engaged in these big kind of, oil and gas companies, and some of the bigger ones too. And he through FFI has been sort of leading I guess a growth in this area. I see lots of other conservation organizations doing the same, like working with the big companies to work within them to make them more sustainable and to have more of a kind of conservation impact. And what he said really eloquently, far better than I can and am, is that the sector has been, listening for a long time. I think they're aware that they need to be greener, they need to be more sustainable, they need to, to address some of the issues. But they're at a turning point now where they're asking people, and it sort of links to the green recovery post-COVID, I think, too, of like, well, what do you want us to do? We're listening. Clearly, our customers want this. Clearly, voters want this, and it links to governments too. So what do you want us to do? And conservationists like Mark and FFI and others are in the position to say, well, this is exactly what it is. We have plans in place. We can work with you and support with you as partners, and therefore we can grow new jobs in-house and also through FFI to kind of grow these kind of conservation programs. So it's not necessarily that new, actually. It's something that when I was at BirdLife International, they work with CEMEX and also BP, who have been funding conservation programs for 4 years, but it's certainly a growth area, and it's been driven, by the consumers, I think, in the first instance.
Excellent. And I think, we can't talk about anything at the minute without mentioning on COVID, and we've already touched it slightly on several points throughout the chat so far. What impact have you been seeing in the industry? Have you seen that there's been any changes in the sorts of careers being offered, changes in working environments? And what do you kind of see in a post-COVID environment?
Yeah. So the impact, we have been trying to sort of measure and monitor impacts of COVID over the last, 9 months or so. And so we did a survey back in April, just after lockdowns hit here in the UK and across the globe. Also, we did it again in September, and the big impact that we saw immediately was just the dropping off of jobs. The job boards were just drying up. So about 80 to 90% of jobs were just put on hold and frozen for a month or two. But they've actually recovered quite a lot since then. So back when we redid the survey again in September, about 80% of the jobs had returned again. And employers were kind of still looking to kind of recruit more so. So I think we're back at almost kind of pre-COVID levels, which is good. And I expect that to kind of continue into next year. But what we don't know from that at the moment is to whether what happened was jobs were put on hold. They've now flushed back into the market, and it might dip down again. Charities have had a really hard time and they've not fully recovered. So we'll have to, time will tell. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But I'm still very positive that, things will be back to where they were. I think that's the more likely outcome right now. And that's certainly what we're still seeing, months after our September survey. So I think things are good. People are obviously working a lot more remotely nowadays. That's like one of the big immediate impacts. And, my guess is that will continue. I think even post-COVID, I think a lot of people quite like it, perhaps as part of a balance of going to the office and not. I think, and organizations now are much more comfortable with this sort of interaction, remote interactions online, so I think I'm hopeful that people will travel less to attend meetings across the globe and just zoom in a lot more. And I think people now know that works. We're comfortable with it. You don't need to fly off to Johannesburg for, a 2-day meeting and come back again from the UK. Just zoom in, that sort of stuff. And I think, and I always saw a bit like travel shaming actually before COVID. I think there'll probably possibly be a bit more of that afterwards. So I think that transition to remote working is going to become more normal, which is a real positive thing of COVID. And I guess, am I hopeful as to like a green recovery and something, positive coming out of all this into next year and beyond? I have to say, I really think I am. What COVID kind of showed me that, maybe sort of stand back and think for a minute was it was incredible, like the scale of change that governments managed to enact, across the world, almost in a unified way, very rapidly when an immediate threat hit. COVID, and then the scale of things like, subsidies, and here in the UK, furlough, the billions and trillions of pounds and dollars that's now been spent to try and help people to get through this threat and to recover from it, has been like awesome in so many ways. Like, wow, look at what governments can do. So why the hell aren't we doing that for biodiversity loss? Why the hell aren't we doing that for climate change? There's no hiding anymore for me. We now know you governments can really put your hands in your pockets and make a huge difference. We have threats as big as COVID, if not bigger, facing the planet. And we have them for many years, and they're getting worse and worse. So, and again, going back to what Mark Rose was saying about the time is now, governments and the big, the CEOs of BP and others are listening. They want to do something. Greta Thunberg, has been in the news now for a few years, climate, extinction rebellion, and movements like that. I think the time is now where governments want to do something. People want change to happen. We've seen the scale of change, really can happen quite rapidly. So, let's come out of this and see this as a positive movement. Let's not forget biodiversity and climate. Let's actually, move towards something which is much greener. So I think governments need to do something. We know they can. And I think we need to keep asking for it as voters and as consumers.
Do you think people are now more aware as well with the connection with nature and how by messing around with biodiversity it can have such a huge impact on our life? Do you think people might start changing their attitude slightly towards that?
I hope so. Definitely. I hope so. Yeah. I mean, again, early lockdown here back in March, no one was going anywhere apart from for walks locally along the rivers and the woods, and whether or not there were more birds there, I heard more cuckoos than ever before this year. I don't think I went out any more particularly. And actually, interestingly, I wonder if they had a safer passage this year because they're a migratory bird that fly through some countries that do actively hunt them, and perhaps lockdown means they didn't get hunted this year. So they'll be interested to see if some of the migratory bird numbers kind of bounce back. But I think a lot of people took solace in nature, in going out and and just finding a bit of stillness, a bit of mindfulness in nature, and that the benefits that came from that. So I'm hopeful that will continue beyond, and that we don't just reset and go back to life as before and try and live a slightly more connected to life, to nature as a result. I'm hopeful of that.
And we've just got a comment pop up from Tamara, and she's saying, hi, thanks for the talk. She's finding it really interesting.
Thanks, Tamara.
No, thank you for all your comments, everyone. I've only got one more question left, but people, wherever you are watching this now, if you've got any more questions that you'd like me to ask that I haven't covered, or you just want to say hi, then please just pop it in the comments and I will read it out. Also, if you're watching this and it's not live, you're watching it afterwards, this will be remaining on both our Facebook sites. So do please still ask a question, and we will do our best to get back to you on that. So Nick, as well as doing your the job side of things and that kind, the training, you also do a lot of podcasts yourself. You're talking to a lot of people in the conservation industry. What would you say are your highlights from doing this? Any favorite moments? And what would you say to people that wanting to kind of network and connect with other people in the conservation industry?
I mean, I've enjoyed talking to conservationists for the last sort of 7 years. First writing and then a podcast after that. We've been running for a couple of years now, and it's always fun to kind of hop on and be on the other side of this sort of discussion, asking the questions and listening to what they say. I've talked about Mark Rose already, actually, at FFI, but I did a podcast with him about a year ago, and it's really worth a re-listen, actually. I enjoyed it so much. He was such an inspiring person. I mean, I've talked to the Director Generals of WWF and IUCN and BirdLife and FFI and, a lot of the big conservation organizations out there, at the top, and ZSL as well. And they're always interesting, open, charismatic, inspiring people. So they always kind of fill me with optimism, and also this kind of conservation is a collaborative world, a real sort of collaborative family nature. And and that I always walk away thinking we're all on the same side. We're trying to do this together, and we've got a kind of bright future where we kind of keep working like that. So I've enjoyed a lot of chats. I'm not going to pick any out particularly. Advice I give to others is don't be shy. I think conservationists, we are this sort of friendly bunch. I've spoken to hundreds of people now, and I haven't had a single person say no having a chat so far, whether that's an interview for the website or for a podcast or something like that. And I know we're Conservation Careers and we're coming because we're going to be promoting this, and that kind of gives it a little more elevated status. But I think if you want to talk to someone and you want to write a blog about them or do an interview or even just have a chat and have some advice, I would jump on somewhere like LinkedIn, find someone who's really interesting to you, who could possibly help you. Perhaps they're doing the job you'd love to do. Find that individual person, that name, and reach out to them and make connection, have a contact, and see if you can have a chat. And you might be surprised where that might go. And if you wanted to start a blog, or if you wanted to start a podcast, or whatever that might be, I would say go for it. Don't overthink it. Don't agonize and worry too much about it. People worry about editing a podcast and you want it to sound good, obviously, but you don't need to spend huge amounts of time polishing audio. We're having a pretty natural conversation right now, and that's going to be good enough to share as a live thing. So just see it as a kind of normal conversation. Just get it out there. Don't overthink it, and be bold, and see what happens. Yeah.
I think you're right as well. I think people get maybe a little bit intimidated about reaching out to people, but it's everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet. Essentially, we're all wanting to help. So people are going to be very willing to kind of try and offer their help and try and help people starting out as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and we see that all the time. Yeah, people want to help others, and we are, very open. We're very friendly. Yeah, there's not many egos, in the industry, I don't think. And people are more than happy to kind of hear from others and to kind of to share advice and to try and help those who are kind of coming along behind us. Yeah.
Okay, we've got a question coming up from Emily Brown, and she's saying, really awesome talk. Thank you. These type of events help us to keep a positive outlook despite the pandemic. She said she's a postgraduate student desperately trying to find an unpaid placement in the conservation sector and has been continually told no positions are available due to COVID and restrictions. Would you recommend that just contacting companies instead of waiting for vacancies to be advertised?
Yep. Basically, yeah. No, I think, the short answer is yes. So I'm a firm believer that only a small portion of opportunities are advertised, and those that are advertised are fairly oversubscribed as a result. So, obviously, if you see something advertised, go for it. Spend time on working on a really quality application, really showcasing how well suited you are to that position, and give yourself the best chance. We have a free guide on the site. In fact, if you go to Amazon and look for conservation job, how to get a conservation job, we have a free guide there that walks you back through how to pull together a good application. So a CV, cover letter, that sort of stuff. So use that, put them in when you see them. But at the same time, alongside that, I'd really encourage you to kind of spend time on particularly LinkedIn. So try and find organizations that are doing work that you really love and are interested in. Find the people who are doing the jobs that you'd like to get experience of, that fill those employability gaps we talked about a little bit earlier. The specific name, you want the Mark Easterbrook, at certain place, that name, and then write the email to that person directly, having done a little bit of research around them, and see if you can find ways of connecting with them and helping them. Remember, that's what you're trying to do, essentially, to receive, the experience. You're going to help them. We actually have a free webinar on our website where we talk through step by step how to do that, how to use LinkedIn, how to find that person, and then what to actually write in the email to them. How do you write a cold email to someone out the blue that has a chance of being opened and has a chance of being responded to? So if you go to our site under advice, webinars, you'll find something. It's called Conservation, Volunteering and Internships That Won't Break the Bank. And you can watch the video replay, and we talk you through the step-by-step how to do that. And I think if you can kind of find people and connect with them that way, you're going to get a much better one-to-one experience. You're going to get really good quality training, and you're not competing against others. It's just you and that person. So absolutely, try that way as well. I think that's a really positive way forwards.
I think as well, you might spark an idea in them that they might not even have thought of, and then you can offer something that might actually bring something to the table that's new for them. So it's always the worst they can say is no at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So have quite a few irons in the fire. I mean, don't just send your CVs out and the same thing every time, but do your research, find the right person, understand how you can help them, what their mission is and where you might be able to fit in. We talk all that through in the webinar. Okay, so there's details in there. And just get in touch with a few people. As you say, there's nothing to be lost by that, and you might be surprised where that might go. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Nick. It's been such a positive talk. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope that people back home have enjoyed it as well, and hopefully inspired people to try and get a career in conservation. Before we go, is there anything you want to finish up with?
No, just thank you so much, Kath, for having us on. Keep up the great work. We really appreciate what you do. What does the Giraffe say? We enjoy these shows too, so thank you much for sharing. If people want to find out more about us, you can probably find us. There's a link on screen, Conservation Careers. We've got lots of free guides and free videos, lots of opportunities on the site. So just jump in, and if you need our help or support, then get in touch. We're here for you.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Well, thanks again, everyone back home. And remember, if you're liking these conversations, please do like and share. The more people that get awareness, the more we can spread the word of the work we're doing. And if you're enjoying the conversations, please head over to my What Does the Giraffe Say page on Facebook. And you can see many more inspiring conservation conversations on there. But for me, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.